Dana.
Education Manager for the City of North Bend. Welcome to our Habitat for Humanity Community Outreach Meeting. This meeting is specifically designed to give you an overview of applicant and loan requirements for this new 7-home townhome community that will be built at the intersection of, oh boy, Second? Yes. 2nd Street or 3rd?
Second Street.
Yes, and Janet Avenue, kind of near the QFC in downtown North Bend. What we'll ask of you, if you could, we're going to let Donna and Evelyn give an overview, give their PowerPoint presentation. If you think of questions while you're watching, if you could put them in the chat bar. And then when they are finished, we'll look at questions in the chat bar and answer them. And then if you think of any afterward that aren't in the chat bar, raise your hand and ask. But the goal is to let them get through the presentation first before they start answering the questions. And also, we would appreciate it if you could leave your name and email address in the chat bar too, if you feel comfortable doing that, just for additional outreach from Habitat for Humanity afterward. Just so we're able to reach you if anything pops up. If you're not comfortable, we totally understand, but if you are, that would be wonderful. My co-host is Bree Keverin, also from the City of North Bend, planner extraordinaire. If I forgot anything, Bree, feel free to mute me and you can chime in, but given that, I think we're ready to go and let Donna do her screen share, or Evelyn, I guess. Sorry, if she's here. Did we get her in?
We did.
Okay, perfect. I will mute then and let them take over.
Excellent.
All right, so Evelyn's going to upload the PowerPoint for us very shortly, and then we'll get started. Does she have sharing capability? Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, I'll talk for a few minutes while she's getting that ready. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. We're really happy that you're here, and we're really excited to really get connected to the community there in North Bend. So this evening, we're going to be telling you about our homeownership program. We'll be building 7 homes in North Bend, and I'm Donna Adair. I'm the Senior Program Manager with Habitat for Humanity. So I work with the homeowners coming into the program, and I also work with them while they're purchasing their home and throughout the closing process and with post homeownership as well. And Evelyn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Evelyn. I am the family support for our home ownership program. So I typically work with the applicants after they have been selected to purchase a home. And I work with them until they are ready to close on their home.
Okay. And Evelyn, can you make the PowerPoint? Can you start the slideshow so it's giving us the full screen? So if you click on slideshow and go from beginning.
It shows like that on my end. It's not showing that on your end?
No.
Let me try that one more time.
Screen. Let me see if I can make it bigger. I can't. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start the presentation, and we would be more than happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. I'm sure you will have some. Feel free to write them down as we go along. Okay, go ahead and flip to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the Habitat Affordable Homeownership Model. What Habitat does to make homeownership affordable is we provide financing to first-time home buyers purchasing a Habitat home. We also help to build, renovate, or repair decent, affordable homes using skilled staff, volunteer labor, and donations of money and materials. Habitat also provides training and supports Habitat home buyers and homeowners. So once you are selected to be part of the Habitat homeownership program, you become connected with Habitat throughout the duration of the time you own your home. So you're really part of the Habitat family. Okay, Evelyn, next slide. So Habitat typically uses layered financing, and people who are applying for our program will most likely go to a third-party lender to secure a pre-qualification for their first mortgage. In addition to getting the first mortgage, folks usually will also have options for some down payment assistance. There usually are several types of down payment assistance available to first-time homeowners. And also the buyer is expected to contribute some type of cash at close. It is not necessarily a down payment or a deposit, but it depends on the individual's financial situation. And that will be determined by both Habitat and the lender. And then Habitat financing. Habitat actually doesn't, we don't write a check for the financing, but Habitat subsidizes the difference between what the sales price and what the total amount of financing that you receive, including your first mortgage and any down payment assistance and any type of contribution that you as a home buyer are contributing. So we'll go and explain that further. So one of the missions of Habitat is to create a permanent, affordable homeownership program, not just for today, but something that will, continue on throughout years and years in the Seattle-King County area, where we are focused on really trying to, maintain that permanent affordability. And how we do that is basically, it benefits you because our program bridges the gap between the sales price of the home and what you can afford. So this is an example of how it works. If the sales price of the home is $400,000 and you were to get a $240,000 pre-qualification from a lender, and you also were eligible for $60,000 of down payment assistance, then the total amount of financing that you're receiving is $300,000. The Habitat equity subsidy, which is 0% interest and has no payments required, would be that $100,000. So essentially, you are buying a home, that would normally sell for $400,000 for, $300,000. So we'll go on to the next slide. So Habitat works with the lenders that you will be going to secure your pre-qualification for your mortgage. And what Habitat does is we help the lender put together a financing package to purchase your Habitat home. We also help the lender to ensure that the mortgage is affordable and does not include adjustable interest rates or unnecessary fees. We also work with the lender and the title company to ensure the closing process is streamlined by coordinating and scheduling the timing and the signing of the closing. Next slide. So the Habitat model involves the Habitat Land Trust. What that means is that while you are purchasing the improvements and the home itself, Habitat retains ownership of the land. So the home is sold to the buyer and the land is leased to the home buyer for 99 years or through the entirety of the time you and your family own the home. There are some restrictions when you buy a Habitat home. One of them is that the home needs to be used as your primary residency. So you must own and occupy the home if you are living in a Habitat home. You cannot rent out the home to other people outside of your immediate family. Habitat has the first option to purchase the home back, and that's how we keep that permanent, affordable homeownership market. So when you do sell your home, you're not going to be selling it at market value, but you're also not buying the home at market value. There will be a resale formula that is in the land trust of the home, and that formula determines that you will be earning appreciation of 1.5% that's accrued annually. So regardless of what you pay for your home, the amount of financing that you bring is what you're earning that appreciation on. And the appreciation does not go up or down over the years. It stays at that 1.5%. So each year you are gaining more and more appreciation because it's compounded annually. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So the selection process. So the Habitat home buyers for North Bend will most likely be selected from a pool of applicants. What that means is we anticipate that we will have more qualified applicants for the 7 homes that we are going to be building in North Bend. So the application process will be open for 60 days. The first 30 days will be specific to the North Bend community, and then we open it up to the public for another 30 days. We will close the application process on June 1st, and then whatever amount of qualified applicants we have at that time will go into a pool, and I'll explain more about that. But the evaluation is done by a committee of staff and volunteers, and each application is going to be evaluated based on the following categories: your eligibility income, the ability to pay. So that means if you can afford the payments, and you also can meet the required minimum amount of financing. Also, a need for housing, and then your willingness to partner with Habitat. And we're going to talk about all of those things in the upcoming slides. So the first thing we're talking about is eligibility income. And that means that your income cannot exceed more than 80% of the Seattle metro area median income. So on this slide, you'll see the chart. Right now, we're still using 2020 income guidelines. That will probably change in the next month or so. Usually those numbers come out from HUD in March or April. So we should expect to see those anytime. They were a little later last year, I am assuming because of COVID, but so maybe not till May. But as soon as those numbers come out, this chart's going to change to the current 2021 numbers, but it's usually not much of a variance. Anyway, if you are a household of 4, then if your income is over 95,520, you would not be eligible for the program because of that 80%. So we're showing you the maximum amount of income per household size on this chart that you can earn. Let's go ahead to the next slide. And then this is ability to pay. So you must be able to secure financing from a lender. And we talked about that earlier about going to a third-party lender and getting a pre-qualification or a mortgage loan. You must also meet the major credit requirements that are set by that lender. And also you must meet Habitat's financing requirements, which are usually very similar to a lender's. And what that means is you must have consistent employment or an income source of at least 1 year. If you're self-employed, then you must show documented income for 2 years before you would be eligible. Unemployment, unfortunately, does not count as consistent income, so we can't use that. I know a lot of people have been impacted by COVID. So if you are unemployed at this time and you do go back to your job similar to what you were doing before, most lenders will go ahead and let you qualify for a mortgage, but you have to be back to work at that point. And then your debt must not be excessive. That means your total debt to income ratio cannot be more than 43% of your total household gross income. And what we're talking about is housing expenses. We're talking about credit card debt. We're talking about any other type of debt you might have, medical debt, student loans, all of your debt that you're paying cannot be more than 43% of the debt to income ratio. Habitat works with your lenders to make sure that your what we call front end debt, your housing expenses are not more than 35% of your gross income. So your housing expenses include your mortgage, principal, your interest, your taxes, your homeowner's insurance, your ground lease, and I think that is it. Oh, and your homeowners association dues. So all of those things are considered housing expenses. So we work with the lender to evaluate how much financing you can get without taking your housing expenses over that 35% of the gross household income. And Habitat does count gross household income. It's not just the applicant's income that we're counting. Okay, so your other debt cannot be more than 8% on top of that 35%. We want to make sure that you can afford to stay in your home throughout the duration of the time that you own your home. And then we also want to make sure that there's no liens or judgments. No lenders will will provide a home mortgage for anybody that has a current lien and or judgment on their credit report. Your credit score also needs to be a minimum of 620 for Habitat. That may vary depending on what lender you're working with. So make sure and check with the lender that you're working with to find out what your minimum credit score needs to be. And then if you have had a bankruptcy, it must have been discharged within the last 4 years or more than 4 years, excuse me. Okay, next slide. And then you have to have a need for housing. So there must be some type of documented need for improved housing situation. That's very, it's very broad because it could be many things that could mean you have a need for housing. One might be that you just have a need for affordable home ownership, and probably everybody who's in this meeting today does. The other thing would be overcrowded housing, more than 2 people per bedroom living in the house that you're currently living in, or you're living in substandard housing, housing that's unhealthy or unsafe, or in a very unsafe neighborhood. Cost burden housing means that your housing costs, your current rent and housing costs are exceeding that 35% that I spoke about earlier. And then quasi-homeless. So you might be living with friends or relatives, but you're not on the lease. You're staying with people temporarily while you're trying to get a place of your own, or living in subsidized housing such as Section 8 or other types of subsidized housing. And then the willingness to partner. So a buyer must be willing to partner with Habitat. It's a little different than buying your home through a real estate agent on the market. The Habitat application needs to be turned in quickly and accurately, and you need to make sure you're submitting all the documents that are required with the application. You must get a lender pre-qualification that meets the minimum amount of financing requirement, and we'll talk about that later. And then the buyer must agree to be an active community member. The buyer also must agree to attend the required classes, attend special events, and help with public relations. So in this particular development, we plan to select all 7 of the home buyers before we start building the home. And we plan to have you all work together and help with the building of the home at the construction site. So we would expect that the buyer would agree to work 20 hours of sweat equity a week. That means going out to the construction site and working on the home. However, 10 of those hours can be done by a volunteer, and Evelyn will talk more about that later. We'll go ahead on to the next slide. All right, Evelyn's gonna go ahead and talk about our sweat equity process now.
Thank you, Donna. So the buyer are expected to do 20 hours of sweat equity per week. As she mentioned, 10 of those hours can be done by volunteers or friends that you have. So there will be mainly doing them at the construction site. So wherever you're going to be living, you can have friends, families, other people who are not living in the home with you donate those extra 10 hours to you. We will be having some funding from USDA. So the buyer will receive a $10,000 credit. So on the purchase of the home at the time of closing. So that's the reason why we have this requirement to do the 20 hours per week on the home. So it is subject to change as we don't have the final agreement yet, but this is what we're working towards for this development. So who can help with your sweat equity hours? So friends and families can be recruited to do those 10 hours to 20 hours on the home. So if you have anybody in your home who's 16 years or older, they can also help out with sweat equity, but they must be supervised by an adult. We do have some residency criteria to purchase a Habitat home. So the main applicant, the person getting the loan, must be a permanent resident of the US at the time of the application. And the applicants must live or work in the King County area. There is a home buyer class that you will need to take before you purchase your home. There is a couple of options right now. Home site They are holding their classes over Zoom. It is a free class, but there is dates. So you'll have to sign up and then attend those classes. So they're doing it over 3 sessions. Or if you don't have time for that, you can also take the second option, but there is a $50 fee to do the course, and it's also online. So the homes in North Bend, there is a minimum financing of $195. So we have 7 homes in that in North Bend that we will be building. 2 of those homes can actually we are gonna have for people of 50% or under for the AMI, so for the area median income. So those are the people that will need to qualify for at least $195,000 for the home. And then the 275 will be for the ones under the 80% AMI. And we will have a chart of the 50% area median income on our website for North Bend. So you can take a look at that on the website. And below are the estimated fees for the home. So that's the insurance, $50, the association dues, which is $200, the ground lease, which is $30, and the property taxes are expected to be $275. So all of those costs are included in that 35% that Donna was talking about for your housing cost. So you will have a lender letter that you will take to your lender, and they will be able to write up your pre-approval letter based on those numbers. So this is the renderings of the home in North Bend. There will be 7 townhomes. They're all 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, 1,250 square feet. And there will be 1 accessible unit. As you can see from the renderings, there is a ramp going up to the home. So your next steps, as Donna said, the applications are open to you as a community preference. There is a password that you must enter for now to start the application. And the password is all capital letters, HFHNB 2021 exclamation point. And that stands for Habitat for Humanity North Bend 2021 exclamation point. We will try to send this password out to you after the meeting or here in the next couple of days. But you do want to schedule an appointment with the lender as soon as possible. It does take some time to get the application in and get a pre-approval letter. You want to do the application within 30 days. I know you guys have a little longer, but the sooner you get it done, I mean, the better it is. That way we can actually help you out if we're missing anything or we need anything else. It's always good to have that time for you to be able to, get that in as soon as possible. Your application is not considered complete until we have all the documents required, and that includes a pre-approval letter. So once you have submitted the application, just check your emails constantly. We will be contacting you, asking for anything else, and then we will let you know once your application is considered complete. The applications will close June 1st. So by this time, if we do not have a full application, even if you're missing 1 or 2 documents, your application will not be complete. So we would close the applications at that time. So some frequently asked questions is if there's a down payment. So we do have a down payment. It's just basically after you sign the purchase and sale agreement. So after you have been selected to purchase a home with Habitat, you will be required to pay $500. And it will be credited back to you once we're closing on the home. And it's just basically to get the unit assigned to you. It's basically saying that you are going to buy the home and we have the unit for you. And then how long will the house be ready? So it depends on the construction. Sometimes there's delays, but usually it's about 6 to 2 years for homes to be built. Because of this development, you are going to be working there a lot. So the more you go out there, the more hours you put in a week, the faster the home will be done. If you need help with the application, you can contact Ben. He's the program selection coordinator, and then Blanca who is also helping Ben in processing the applications. It'll be a great point of contact for you if you guys need any help. Any questions?
Okay, are there any questions, anybody? We also have Nolan Corlett here. He's our construction director, and he can answer questions about the construction if anyone has any questions, and we're happy to answer questions about our programs. So feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat box. I think we can unmute people if they have a question. I'm not seeing any hands go up. Okay. Okay, well, if you do think of questions, Bree can share our email information with you as well. I could type it into the chat room, which I'll do here in a second. And we're happy to send you a copy of the PowerPoint. Whoops. Wrong email. Oh, that looks like one for Nolan. When will the construction start? Whoops, you're muted. Let's see.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So we're going to, we've already started some of the site construction. As you guys can tell, we tore down the house, got rid of some of the trees, and we will be anticipating by the end of April, start mobilizing equipment and working on some more of the site construction. We don't anticipate homeowners and volunteers to be out there until mid to late August. So they'll be starting with framing of the floor system. So, good question.
I have a question for you guys. If all goes as planned and construction goes seamlessly, how long till you foresee those qualified residents being able to occupy the homes?
So we're looking at a kind of like a 12-month schedule. It's a kind of wide open one. Evelyn brought it up earlier, is the more help that we can get and the more people come out, the faster we build our homes. So 12 months is kind of just based on, kind of an average of what we would get. We could definitely build those 7 homes a little bit faster. So I would say 12 months would put us at August 2022.
Okay, I see a question there about volunteering. So it's asking if Habitat will be able to share information about how to volunteer. If so, how and when. So is this specific to the construction of these homes as a home buyer?
Oh.
Or
No,
just
just
as
as a community member, someone who just wants to volunteer.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we have on our Habitat website, we have what we call our volunteer site there too. So we have Volunteer Hub, which is what we use for people to register to volunteer for Habitat. Yeah, and you can go I'll write down our regular. I gave you our website for our home sales, but I'm going to give you our regular website too.
Is there a site specifically for this, for volunteers for this site on the website? Or is it just a general volunteer list?
That's a good question. It's both. So once you sign up and register as a volunteer, then we have what we call an event list that goes out each month that shows all the different sites that are, available for a volunteer to sign up on, and you can choose which site. So as Nolan said, there probably won't be volunteer activity until August, maybe, but you can get signed up on our volunteer hub and just kind of watch it. And usually the beginning of each month, our volunteer department hosts all the events that will be, happening during that month each
Okay.
different construction site, and North
right.
Bend will be up there. Yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm. Oh,
Hey,
excellent.
Hey,
Evelyn?
Donna, when you
Yes.
guys have gotten more community involvement in your projects, I'm assuming most are kind of on the smaller scale like this one. Have you ever seen it go faster than you anticipated?
I'm going to pass that one to Nolan.
Yes and no. Sometimes we'll get a community members that want to donate something, and donating it isn't always, they might donate half of something and leave the other half hanging. But generally, especially in North Bend, we've seen a lot of support from the city and from everyone, kind of been helping kind of streamline the process and push things along. So the more community members that come out and volunteer and kind of like help us with construction, or even kind of like the permitting or planning process, I'd say as a general rule, the faster it goes, because they have kind of an investment in it as well that's not necessarily financial. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all for coming this evening. Please be sure to tell other community members. A lot of people don't realize that they might qualify for a Habitat home. I think historically people think that this is really a program for very, very, very low income. And although we do serve low income families, we also, you would be surprised if you look at those numbers on our website at the income ranges aren't as low as you might think. Under 50%, fortunately, we're able to still serve that. It's a smaller amount just because our construction costs are growing. And if you've been watching the news, you'll see a lot of information about that, how lumber is very expensive right now and materials are getting harder to get. But we will be able to provide 2 of the units to lower income, under that 50%. And that 50% guideline is on our website, like Evelyn said. And then the other 5 units will go to people between 50 and 80%. So definitely, spread the word, and we hope to hear from you. We hope that, we'll be able to really get involved with the community out there. We're really looking forward to it. It's a beautiful community. I spend a lot of time out there, so I like that area a lot, do a lot of recreational things there. So yeah, and feel free to send any questions our way.
Thank you, Donna. And it's April 1st, right?
Actually, it's open now. They could actually, if they use that code,
Okay.
the HFHNB2021, they can go ahead and start an application now. We went ahead and opened it up only for people living in the North Bend community. So, yeah.
And that's living or working. Is
Yes,
that
thank
correct?
you. Yes.
In zip code 98045. Just, we have a
Mhm.
smaller city limit area, but a larger zip code area. So we did open it up to living or working in that zip code. So
Wonderful. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much, Donna. We appreciate yours and Evelyn and Nolan's time answering questions and giving the presentation. And we hope you get a good application preference period from our community.
Yeah, we do too. We do too. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you for attending,
everyone.
everyone.